Edition of Crime Stoppers. I'm Mark Allen. It's now been 3 years since the murder of Dayton police officer Kevin Brame. He was ambushed just after dropping off his 2 young sons at their Dayton home. In the next half hour, you'll be learning much more about Officer Brame, about the status of the investigation, and why it is so important that his killer be brought to justice. We begin with Sergeant Gary White, who takes us back to the night of the murder, November 1st, 1999.
Well, Kevin was arriving at his home on Cherry Drive, and he dropped off 2 of his children. He was only at his home for a brief period of time, and as he was leaving the home, he was approaching his car in the driveway of the house when his assailant approached him, most likely from a darkened area of the property, and fired 1 shot at Kevin, and the gunshot struck Kevin in the neck. This 1 gunshot was sufficient to cause his death, and his death was probably instantaneous. As we investigated the scene of the crime, it was apparent to us that robbery was probably not the motive for this particular crime. So with that in mind, we obviously tried to determine what type of motive would propel someone to commit a crime like this. Particularly something as vicious and as violent as this homicide was. And understanding, of course, that Kevin is a police officer, we certainly looked into areas of people that he may have arrested, who may have motive to do something to him. And we had many leads to begin with, and I should say many directions of our investigation. It was multifaceted, and we were going in 4 to 5 different directions, but most investigations are like that. So we had many leads to follow up on, and as the years have gone on, our investigations have become more focused on the particular scenario anyway. And people who were suspects at one time, are no longer suspects. There are still persons who are out there who we've not been able to eliminate as suspects. So we continue to look at motive and who had an opportunity. And there are people out there that are talking about it. The persons who are responsible for this crime do not live in a vacuum. They are just, not isolated people. They are out in the community. Any person involved in this crime is, probably has family members, probably has even children of their own, who knows, that are going to school, college, who knows. They may attend church, they're just, they're out there, and they're among the public, and people know who they are, and we are asking that right person to call us and let us know what they know.
When we return, we'll be talking with 2 people who have somehow survived the longest 3 years of their lives, Kevin Brame's parents. Stay with us. Officer Kevin Brame have been waiting for justice now for 3 long years, but it seems like just yesterday that they lost their son. They remember that day very well. They had just spent some happy moments with Kevin on his father's birthday.
He left our house to get the boys home because it was a school night. It was a Monday. This was about 8:35, 8:40 when he left our house, and he was killed at 8:54. Had just dropped his sons off, had left the house, was walking toward his truck with keys in hand, had absolutely no chance to defend himself. And we got a call a little after 9. Telling us that he had been shot. But by the time we got there, the yellow tape was up. It was awful.
My first inclination that night while we were over at the scene was, Lord, why me?
Mm-hmm.
Why me on my birthday?
Yeah.
How can that be? And a little later, some down the road, I thought, the Lord has given me the best birthday gift I could have ever had, to see him before he died. So that was a wonderful birthday gift, to see him and talk to him.
We just recently did the story that it had been 3 years, and it really surprised me with that day when we're
I'm going through the stories. I said, God, has it really been 3 years?
It's been 3 agonizing years.
Well, tell me about the last 3 years.
Well, it's very difficult to lose a child out of the natural order of things.
That's what's so difficult is that, you know, even when you're in the middle of any family gathering, there's a void because he's not here. He had plans, just like any father would have, for his children and for himself, for his life. All that was taken away. It's a gross miscarriage of justice that the people who have done this are still free to live their lives, miserable as they are. It's just not right. Kevin was a productive citizen. He was in service to the city. He liked helping people. Whoever did this has taken away so much joy and so much promise that it's something that we live with every day, and you never get away from it. Any victim of violence, I'm sure, could relate to our story. And for anyone who has not actually lived through it, it's hard to imagine. But, you just hope that at some point justice will be done and whoever did this will be caught and made to answer for what they have done, for the harm that they have caused, and all the joy that they have taken.
What, if you could put into words for me, what it would mean to this family to solve this, to finally know what happened? What would it mean when that day comes? What will it mean?
You know, it's an oft repeated phrase and sometimes becomes trite, I'm sure, but to bring closure, to know that whoever did this is not getting away scot-free. I have no idea what the motivation was and truly do not care. I truly do not care. There is nothing that could justify what was done to my son. It obviously will not heal. It will not bring my son back. Time, contrary to what most people think, does not heal all pain.
That perhaps we would see justice done, but it wouldn't bring Kevin back.
No.
But he deserves justice. If there's someone in our community who thinks that they can kill a policeman and get by with it, what hopes do you have, your friends have, and
Any of us.
yeah, any of us. Because there's somebody that is there that they're so blatant that they could walk up to somebody and do that. And they have said to us that they're going to look in all the dark corners and shine lights. They're going to turn over every rock, open every door until they can bring this to a successful conclusion.
Updates us here on the status of Crime Stopper cases, and Julie, I guess, in a sense, you'll be doing that tonight, but obviously this one is a lot more personal. Not only are we talking about a Dayton police officer who was the victim of this murder, but as happenstance would have it, you were on duty that night. You were, I believe, the second officer on the scene. I know it's been hard for you to see those pictures again and have to relive that night. But I have to ask you, take me back to that night. What are your recollections?
I heard the call come out. Dispatch asked if anybody could take a shooting, and I was in the roll call room, and I volunteered to take the shooting. The next words I heard were, "An officer's down," and I heard Cherry Drive, and I knew immediately in my heart that it was Kevin, because I'd been to his house before, and it's the only officer I knew that lived there, and it just all hit me. And I ran and got in my cruiser, and I was fairly new to that district and really didn't even know the best way to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it was God that just took me there. I made every turn correctly, and I went as fast as that cruiser would take me. And I just kept thinking to myself the whole time, "Kevin, please be okay. Kevin, please be okay." And I went as fast as I could go. And when I got there, I jumped out of my cruiser, and I ran up, and he was laying there dead. And there was no pulse, and there was nothing I could do. And I was in denial. The first officer there was Officer Matthews, who happened to be a senior officer, which probably worked out better that I wasn't the exact first one there, although I was dispatched on the call, because I totally lost it. It was police officers, you can always ask, everybody always asks you a story. Aren't you afraid? What's the worst call you've ever had?
Right.
Have you ever been in a shooting? But there's nothing as bad as going on a call where one of your brothers has been killed. And it was the worst night of my career, and I will never, ever forget it. It seems like it was almost yesterday. And he was just laying there, and the last time I had seen him, he was happy and smiling, and I had never seen him upset. And he was supposed to come to my party Saturday night, and he was bringing his children, and...
It was a Halloween party, right?
I have a yearly Halloween party, and he was so happy. When we were leaving Friday night to go off duty, he was showing me a mask, and he said he'd help scare the kids, and he was just grinning from ear to ear, and he was so happy. And he didn't show up Saturday night, and I didn't know why. And I was going to ask him when I saw him again, but then the next time I saw him, he was laying there dead.
Julie, every case is important, but the fact that Kevin was a police officer, his father is a former Dayton police officer. Try to let the folks understand how vitally important it is that we finally, once and for all, solve this case.
It's very important for the community to heal. That night was so unfair to everybody, unfair to police officers, unfair to the family. I had to keep his family back. I couldn't even let them pass the scene tape. And how hard is that to see the hurt in their face, and they know their son's lying there dead, and I can't let them go. And I had to case the neighborhood and talk to people, and people just weren't feeling what we were feeling. And we were hurt, we were angry, we were scared. I questioned myself if I was in the right profession, if I had made the right decision. I was scared to come to work the next day. Yeah. It was truly a tragic experience, and I think we need that person to come forward to help us heal, because the whole community as a whole needs to heal.
Hopefully people feel that now. Julie, thank you for that. I appreciate that. We'll have a final word after this. Years, Dayton police are now narrowing their investigation into the murder of Officer Kevin Brame, but they and Officer Brame's family are still waiting for that final piece of the puzzle that will finally crack this case. Now, once again, there's a $25,000 reward for the information that leads to an arrest and conviction in this murder. If you have that information, please call Crime Stoppers anytime at 222-STOP. You will never have to give your name. You can remain completely anonymous, collect that sizable reward, and a family can finally have some peace, and a city will finally see justice done. I'm Mark Allen. We thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month.